The girl stared at the polished leather seat across from the window, her hands gripping the worn straps of her backpack. She could feel the hum of the heater through the floor, smell the cinnamon and coffee mingling in the air, and hear the faint clink of silver spoons against porcelain cups. She swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the man sitting alone, his tailored suit immaculate, a sleek laptop open before him. Every fiber of her being wanted to ask, to understand, to reach out. Then, before she could think twice, the words slipped out. Is this seat only for the rich? If you love stories that warm your heart and remind you of the power of kindness, make sure you subscribe to Kindness Tales. Hit the like button if this story touches you, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your experiences with small acts of big-hearted generosity. She had been wandering through the snowy streets of downtown, her shoes thin, socks damp, fingers nearly numb from the cold. The Christmas lights twinkled above her, each bulb reflecting in puddles of melting snow, creating a surreal mix of joy and melancholy. Her stomach ached from hunger, and the chill had settled into her bones like an uninvited guest. She hadn't planned to enter the cafe. She wasn't supposed to spend money she didn't have. But something about the warm glow through the frosted windows drew her in, a silent promise of comfort. Inside, the cafe buzzed softly with the hum of conversation, the faint hiss of the espresso machine, and the occasional jingle of the door as customers came and went. Families laughed quietly over mugs of cocoa. Couples leaned in close, sharing holiday pastries, and the air smelled of roasted coffee beans, sweet sugar and soft bread. She felt like an intruder, standing near the doorway with her coat clinging to her thin frame. Her eyes roamed the room, landing on a man who seemed entirely out of place in this festive chaos. He was alone, sipping his drink slowly, tapping occasionally at his laptop, absorbed in a world far removed from the warmth around him. There was an aura about him, calm, composed, almost untouchable. But to her, he seemed human, just a man who might understand. Gathering courage, she stepped closer. Her heart pounded in her chest as the words left her lips. Awkward and trembling, but clear. Is this seat only for the rich? He looked up, startled at first, eyes widening slightly behind the rim of his glasses. Then a smile spread slowly across his face, gentle and unguarded. He gestured to the empty chair opposite him, a silent invitation. She hesitated, feeling like she was crossing an invisible boundary. But the warmth of the room and the kindness in his eyes drew her forward. She sat, letting the weight of the day sink from her shoulders just a little. Her name was Lily, a 17-year-old navigating a world that had been harsh and unforgiving. She lived with her grandmother, who had raised her alone, working long hours at the laundromat to keep the tiny apartment above it. Money was always tight, meals were often skipped or stretched to make ends meet, and dreams were luxuries she rarely allowed herself to consider. Christmas had always been hard, a season of longing for things she would never have, of watching others celebrate while she counted pennies and prayed for small mercies. That day, she had snuck out after her grandmother had dozed off, hoping to steal a moment of light for herself, a break from the cold and the shadows of worry. The man across from her introduced himself simply, with a warmth that didn't feel forced. His name was Michael, and though she had heard stories of CEOs and billionaires who were cold and distant, he seemed genuine, grounded in a quiet humanity. He asked her about her day, her dreams, the small victories and disappointments of life she rarely spoke aloud. At first, Lily felt awkward, unsure of how to bridge the gap between her world and his. But he listened without judgment, nodding, encouraging her to share her thoughts. His attention was not patronizing, it was real, the kind of attention that makes a person feel seen. Lily told him about her grandmother, the way she had worked tirelessly to provide a roof over their heads, the little moments of love hidden between chores and exhaustion. She shared her own small ambitions, wanting to finish school, to someday travel, to taste the freedom most of her friends took for granted. And in response, he shared pieces of himself, not the wealth or the power, but the struggles, the mistakes, the moments of doubt that even the most successful people carried quietly. She realized that despite the differences in their lives, the emotions, the fears, the hopes, they were not so different after all. As the conversation deepened, a small act of kindness emerged, almost unnoticeable but profoundly significant. Michael asked if she was hungry, and when she hesitated, she admitted she hadn't eaten since morning, without a second thought. He waved over the server and ordered a warm meal for her. Simple, nourishing, nothing extravagant, yet it carried a weight that she hadn't felt in years. The food arrived steaming, filling the air with scents that made her stomach growl even louder, and she ate quietly, savoring every bite. She looked up at him with gratitude, words failing her in a way that sometimes only profound kindness can render. The conversation meandered, touching on books they loved, music, the little joys of winter, and even the hardships that shaped who they were. He shared stories of moments where others had helped him when he was struggling, explaining that sometimes the simplest gestures, the offer of a meal, a listening ear, a smile, had changed his life more than any grand event ever could. Lily listened, captivated not by the stories of wealth or power, but by the human moments of connection and generosity. She began to understand that kindness was a language all its own, one that transcended social class, age, and circumstance. Time seemed to stretch and shrink all at once. The cafe around them continued its soft, steady hum, people coming and going, laughter drifting across the air. Outside, the snow fell gently, blanketing the streets in white, yet inside, a different kind of warmth had taken hold. Lily felt lighter, braver, more seen than she had in months. She realized that a simple question, a fleeting moment of courage, had opened a door, not to wealth or privilege, but to empathy, understanding, and the profound beauty of human connection. Before leaving, Michael handed her a small notebook, worn and simple, saying that it was for her to write her dreams, her thoughts, her hopes. He told her that dreams needed witnesses, and sometimes all a dreamer needed was someone who believed in them. She clutched it tightly, feeling the weight of possibility, the whisper of hope that had been absent for far too long. Outside, the cold still bit at her cheeks, but she walked with a warmth that would not fade. The next day, she returned to her routine, but something had shifted inside her. She began writing every evening, recording little victories, dreams, and acts of kindness she noticed around her. She started helping her grandmother in small ways, leaving notes of gratitude, sharing smiles, little reminders that even in hardship, the world held pockets of light. And on weekends, she volunteered at the local community center, serving meals, helping children read, and discovering that the smallest gestures often created ripples, far beyond what she could see. Over time, Lily realized that the encounter at the Christmas Café was more than just a fleeting moment. It was a turning point. The kindness she had received had ignited something in her, a reminder that human connection, compassion, and generosity were forces more powerful than she had ever imagined. She carried that lesson forward quietly, persistently, touching lives in ways both small and large. And though she never forgot the warmth of that cafe, she understood that she too could become a beacon for others, creating moments of hope where they were needed most. Years later, when she walked past that same cafe, now bustling with holiday cheer, she paused for a moment and smiled. She saw people sitting together, strangers sharing warmth, laughter echoing through the air. And she thought of that man who had reminded her of the simple power of kindness. She knew that every act, no matter how small, could make an impact that stretched far beyond what anyone could imagine. She realized that true wealth wasn't measured in money or possessions, but in the love and generosity one carried in their heart, and the courage to offer it to others. The story of that day reminds us that kindness can arrive in the most unexpected moments, from the most unexpected people. A simple gesture, a moment of empathy, a shared meal, or even a listening ear can change a life, spark hope, and inspire others to pass it on. In a world that often feels cold and rushed, taking the time to truly see another person, to offer a small act of generosity, can create a ripple that travels farther than we can ever imagine. We may not all have wealth or influence, but we all have the power to make someone feel seen, valued, and loved. So the next time you notice someone struggling, consider what you can give, not just in material things, but in presence, in warmth, in kindness. Your smallest gesture might become someone's turning point, their beacon of hope in a challenging world. And remember, every act of kindness you share can inspire others to do the same, creating a world where compassion is the true measure of wealth. Share your own stories of kindness in the comments, and let's keep this circle of generosity growing, one heartfelt moment at a time.